Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Preston Guy joins us each and every Friday. He's over at tigerbait.com. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. I know you're not a huge baseball guy, so I wouldn't anticipate you're going to watch a ton of A&M and Tennessee playing for a national championship. What if I flip it to football? What's the worst case national championship game for football that would just make you ill to watch?
Man, look, the way I look at these things is, and we're going to do it from an LSU fan perspective here. Who hurts you the most in recruiting and whatnot? And the answer is Alabama. It just is. You recruit against them probably more than any other team, and that's the team that they have the biggest upper hand on you. And if that continues under Kalen DeBoer, if they just don't miss a beat and win a national championship, it gets pretty depressing for an LSU fan.
It would. That's like the Bears, who they just got out of Brett Favre's shadow. Here comes Aaron Rodgers, and they thought that Jordan Love was terrible, and now he might be good again too. And like you really sometimes you think that the boogeyman's gone, and another one shows up. I'm hopeful that's not the case with Kalen DeBoer. Either way, LSU continues to work on itself personally with the football team, and added another big time offensive lineman this week with Carius Kern. What can you say? Well, first of all, tell me about him as a prospect and what you like.
He actually has a very interesting rating. On3, which is, a recruiting service I have a lot of respect for. I don't work for them, but I have a lot of respect for their rating system. Has him as the number one interior offensive lineman in the country. And then there's other services like 247 that have him as like the 22nd rated, which is still, it's a good offensive lineman to land if you're running the 22nd best in the country. But that's just a wider discrepancy than we see. And I saw an explanation about them, and they talked about how he's got quick feet, he's athletic, they have videos of him doing like backflips and stuff like that. And their explanation was they just don't make offensive linemen like this. He truly is what they call a dancing bear. And at his size, it's just kind of a rarity. So really interesting addition for LSU. Of course, now if you look at the On3 rankings, you've got the number one quarterback, number one running back, number one interior offensive lineman. And on your campus for official visits within the last 30 days, you've had the number one wide receiver in the country, the number one corner in the country, and the number one safety in the country have all taken not just visits, but official visits. That's a big deal because you only get to use 5 of those. So, roughly speaking, it means you're one of their top 5 schools they're considering. So, they're cooking and recruiting right now.
So let's speak to the offensive line specifically. We know that Brad Davis inherited a mess 3 years ago. What can you say about the job he has done to solidify that position? And then would you suggest that is the position group you feel the most confident in terms of the program moving forward because of what they've got, the foundation and the position codes that's leading the way?
Yeah, obviously this upcoming year they're going to have one of the best offensive lines we've probably seen in school history. At least on paper, it looks that way. A lot of times these things can look concrete preseason, and then, once they line up and they say hut, none of that matters, right? But on paper, it looks phenomenal. In terms of the confidence, I am confident in the job that Brad Davis has done, but boy, he's got some work cut out for him for the 2025 season, doesn't he? Sure, he's been recruiting well, but you're going to have to replace 4 starters next year. And including what I assume is, I haven't really looked to say this for sure, but I assume it's the best pair of offensive tackles you've ever had in school history. So he's got a lot of work cut out for him. I would feel a lot better if you were returning, say, 3 out of 5 for next year, but 4 out of 5, that's a rebuild.
It is, and they certainly recruited very, very well. You mentioned having all those guys on campus over the last 30 days. We're in the middle of a lot of official visits, unofficial visits, juniors who are getting offers, seniors you're looking for commitments from. Another big weekend coming up, I'm assuming. What can you say about it?
Yeah, they got about 5 or 6 guys coming in tonight. Anquan Fagans, guys, safety out of Alabaster, Alabama. Alabaster, Alabama. Boy, that is a tongue, isn't it?
It is.
And a lot of other good players. We have the full list on tigerbait.com. You're free to go check out, but it's not quite as large as what it's been. The last couple weekends have been about a dozen or so highly recruited players each weekend. And this is going to be about 6 tonight, about half a dozen. So certainly some quality players coming out, there's no doubt, but it is not quite as large as it's been.
One of the things I read earlier this week was that Bryce Underwood's flying down for the weekend, and he's done that multiple times on his family's own dime to come down to interact with some people in the class to help recruit and just to ingratiate himself into the football program further, and he's not taking visits anywhere else. I know that one of my favorite sayings is that expectation breeds disappointment, and sometimes massive expectations are Leonard Fournette or Dylan Cruz, and it is what it is, and sometimes it's a massive disappointment. And there's going to be so much heaped on this kid. But from what we have to go on right now while he's still in high school, I mean, I don't know that you could ask for much more in a recruit and a potential signee than LSU's gotten out of Bryce Underwood.
No, you can't ask for much more. And from what I'm told, he's not only the number one quarterback in the country, but most evaluators consider him among the higher rated quarterbacks for the last, 5 or 10 years. And he's about as committed as you could possibly ask for. He'll also be here with Harlem Berry this weekend. And they're both pretty locked in. Harlem Berry and Bryce Underwood, you really can't get much more secure than those guys. Of course, Harlem Berry, his dad played with Frank Wilson back in the day in high school. So, I mean, real tight relationship there. Guys who are engaged and want to build a bigger class. One of the things that stands out watching Bryce Underwood. So I covered Arch Manning and when he was in high school, and he was, of course, rated the number one player in the country. In fact, he was unanimous at a certain point, making him one of the highest rated recruits of all time. And, comparing him to Bryce Underwood, I'm not saying Arch Manning was a bad prospect, but Bryce Underwood has a wow factor when he's throwing the ball, especially in 7-on-7 situation. I mean, it is just like, wow, that was a really tight window. He just nailed it perfectly. It's like a dart player. Right? And Arch Manning never had that wow factor watching him. It was nothing that just like made your jaw drop. It was just a solid player with, good, not elite arm talent. Like, and it was, he was certainly good, but it's just a whole nother level when you watch Bryce Underwood. I can't help but make that comparison watching the two players. So it's a good situation LSU finds them in. But as we saw this last season, you need more than quarterback to be successful. Remember the days of, if LSU could just get a quarterback, they'd be good to go. Those Les Miles years, those are long gone, Hunt.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue because I read a story yesterday and did a little segment on it yesterday where ESPN took all the programs and they looked at recruiting rankings, returning production, and a lot of different things, and they ranked the teams based on what they thought they would look like for 3 years, not just one.
Yeah.
And LSU was right there, 6 or 8 or so. And I made the statement that I feel probably a little bit better about LSU over the course of 3 to 5 years, even than I do about this coming fall, just because I trust Brian Kelly and the group he's got there, and I have some questions, obviously, on defense this year. How do you feel about that statement that I make, that I feel really good about LSU over the next 3 to 5 years, even if I have some trepidation about this coming year?
I don't think this is going to be a year where they're winning a championship quite yet. I also feel better about the next 3 to 5 years because I love where they're doing with recruiting. I mean, you can't help but notice this class they've got locked and loaded where they have 3 players who are number one in their position group coming in, and they're going to keep on rolling. Like we just talked about 3 other players who were number one at their position taking officials to your campus in the last month. I mean, they're certainly turning and burning with talent. Hopefully they've got this coaching staff, especially the defensive coaching staff, straightened out. And we're not going to see a historically awful defense ever again. I mean, if you had paired that offense with an average defense, we're talking about a championship run last year. So it is nice to see that Brian Kelly in his first 2 years at least put together half of a championship quality team. But the other half is what cost them here. And the thing is about those future projections, it's based on who's on your roster and who expects to be there in the future. And I can't help but think about things like, Walker Howard, if you did that 3 years ago, was the guy they were basing that ranking off of. And, now he's at Ole Miss. He's going the other way for you. He's hurting you, not helping you at this point. So I think in the transfer portal era, I think you're a little naive to look at those. It's like a computer calculation, right? Like, I think it's a little naive to sit there and assume, well, based off of your roster and the way it looks now, you're going to look like this in 3 years. I think you really just have to evaluate who's your head coach, what's the odds he sticks around, and how much do you trust him with talent evaluation and development.
Yeah, I put the caveat in front of that entire discussion with like, yeah, we know that the transfer portal can shake this whole thing up, but we're looking for radio content here in late June, and we're not in Omaha, so here we are. Preston, have a great weekend. We appreciate it.
All right, Hunt. See you soon.
He's Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, with us every Friday talking LSU football. If you're looking for your LSU football fix, you can find it on YouTube, Hunt on LSU. Subscribe up to the channel. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.